So Claude 3 just released and it's all hype right now. Everybody's saying that it's going to be better than ChatGPT. Everybody's saying that it's going to be the closest thing to sentient, AGI, all that stuff. At the end of the day, I don't really care about that. I just want to know, is it easier for me to use? Are the answers clear? Do they make sense? Because really, we just want to know if this thing is user-friendly because we have questions and we want answers, right? That's the whole point of, all these chat model AIs. And the way I like to ask it is I like to look back at problems that I had before that I think if I had had AI when I was a little younger, it would have helped me, resolve. So one example of that is right now I work as a software developer. I kind of took a long way to that. I went back to school at 28. I had dropped out multiple times, and now, thankfully I have a job that pays well, that I'm happy with, and that it's the line of work that I do. Mind you, I say that because I had a lot of different jobs. I had multiple majors. I constantly had jobs and did, did career choices that I felt were unfulfilling or just not the right fit for me. Now, if I had had something as neat as ChatGPT, as neat as all these AI tools, I probably would have been able to figure out a better path for me with all this trial and error, right? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to pretend that, in my 20s, early 20s again, and that I'm trying to figure out if tech is the right fit for me. So we're going to ask both ChatGPT and Claude. We're going to give it this prompt. We're going to say, I want a job in the tech industry. I have no coding experience. I don't have a college degree. I don't have a lot of money. I'm hardworking. I enjoy working with technology. I don't want to spend a lot of money because college is pretty expensive. I'm still paying back those student loans. I want to work somewhere within the next 6 months to a year. Now that might seem a little unrealistic to some, but I think if you're interested in what you're studying and you become disciplined, you can get pretty far in 6 months to a year. And I want to make to close to 100K a year more, of course, because we want a good salary, right? I don't think anybody wants to switch careers just to not make a good amount of money. And then he would just tell that we want to act as an expert in the tech industry and career advisor. And that we want actionable steps. We just don't want generic advice about go back to school, work hard. This is not like we want a plan. And we're basically specifying that we want a roadmap, right? We want this broken down into weekly, monthly goals, whatever it decides is going to be a best fit. Again, we're going to try both of them out. And these are both the ChatGPT 4 and the paid version of Claude, which I haven't tried. It's the first time playing with the paid version of Claude. I used the free one today. I thought it was great. So let's give it a shot. I think it's gonna be a little like those racing videos they do on TikTok, but let's see. So far I see that they're both, I'm not reading them yet, just glancing, see that they're both giving us month-to-month process. On ChatGPT is kind of pausing a little more and thinking, I guess, or processing the query, and it looks like it got stuck on there a bit. So since that one's finishing or might time out, let's look at the Claude one, right? Let's see. As an expert career advisor with 30 years experience in the tech industry, understand your aspirations. Okay, month 1-2. Research and identify tech roles. Okay, so to me that's a little generic. Start learning foundational skills. Okay, so saying Coursera, Udemy. Dedicate 25 hours. So month 1, it's basically saying do some research, create a GitHub account. Okay, so I'm reading these, continue learning, like that. So to me, just reading this, granted, this is the first prompt we're giving it. I do feel like there's still a tad bit generic. Look at the ChatGPT one. Research figures roles, look into software development, cybersecurity. So even here, I think this was already more specific in terms of, well, I guess here we got some of the fields, but I think this is a little more industry specific. Select the field based on your interest and potential. Okay, so I think overall, while these do set somewhat of a roadmap, I still feel like it's a little bit generic on both ends, right? So let's ask for more information. So let's say that we want to pick the career for us, I guess the career role or the industry for us, and to give us even more specific stuff. So it looks like for both, it decided to suggest a specific roadmap a specific roadmap tailored to web development. I do like how on ChatGPT it was a little more specific on the kind of technologies you should focus on learning, while on Claude I think it gave a little more view on, I guess, the concept you should familiarize yourself with. But I think one of the things I don't like about this response is that to some extent I feel like a lot of people that go into tech do go for full stack web development. So I feel like that might be, on the one hand, a little bit too competitive for somebody that doesn't have a college degree. And on the other hand, if it's somebody that's starting with no coding experience, they might become overwhelmed as they troll through this path and just drop it all together, right? So I think that'll be the next question we give both of them. Right, so to elaborate on this, we're gonna say, hey, I feel that this sector, let's just submit it. I'm gonna say I feel that this sector and the industry is saturated. Not just that, I feel that one may become overwhelmed by the journey, especially starting out without any prior programming experience, and might not complete the journey altogether. Whether sector or role, would you suggest there's more niche skill-wise, but more in demand, and not nearly as saturated as web dev, since everybody that goes into tech goes for this role? So we want to see how it goes about deciding what different role or sector of tech you would pick if you didn't want to go with web dev. Again, I do think it's obviously people that do that are very talented, very intelligent, but I think starting out that learning curve might be a little overwhelming. And at the end of the day, we want to test Claude's and ChatGPT's ability to, I guess, almost like reason these problems for us, right? Because you could spend a whole semester, a whole year majoring in computer science or whatever it is you end up taking, whatever course you end up taking, and you might not like it at all. On the other hand, we're still waiting on ChatGPT to finish the previous prompt because it did time out earlier. I don't know if it's because I'm sending the request at the same time, probably not, but I do think that it's not looking good so far. Right, so after going through this, I do like the response that we got from Claude. It's suggesting that you go on, I guess, what they call a Salesforce trailhead. So Salesforce, I know it's commonly known as a CRM tool for customer data management, but they actually have a whole enterprise level ecosystem that they sell as a cloud package to companies for them to, build apps, deploy apps, whether that's the front end, the back end. They have their own query language, they have their whole front end language. So I do think this is considering that this does kind of consists the factor of working in the tech industry, which if the assumption here is that you like or you would want to work in tech, that you would want to learn how to code, but you don't want to get into something as not necessarily generic, but something as oversaturated as web development, learning Salesforce is going to be a super niche skill, but by learning that, you're going to get all the skills that you would develop when becoming a web developer. But by getting these Salesforce certifications, you would also almost have this, almost like its own, you would have your own set of skills that are more related to that specific, set of tools and set of technologies, instead of just saying like, oh, I'm a web dev, oh, I know React, oh, I know front-end stuff. If you had these certificates, that would definitely put you in a more competitive position to apply for jobs, to showcase your skills and showcase projects that stand out differently and more competitively than someone who just, says they're a web dev. So I do actually really like this response. And again, it gives us the month-to-month plan, which I like that it's able to maintain that consistency of the original prompt that we want, basically a guide. So I think what I want to keep doing for this one is we're going to ask you to go one step further and give us an even more specific week-to-week breakdown that's realistic, that can be accomplished for somebody that does decide to pursue this Salesforce. All right, guys, so on Claude 3, we asked it to give us an even more specific breakdown. Basically, we want a week-to-week plan that we can use to study. I wasn't specific about the amount of hours we had to dedicate, but I did say that it would be for someone that only has partial time to study. So as I'm looking through this response, I like that it specifies how many hours you should be focusing per week. It's telling you what modules you should get started on. So let's just double check that these are actual real Salesforce modules. Let's look at the certifications real quick. So I do think it mentioned some of these administrator. So it seems like a lot of what it's recommending here does align with the stuff that Salesforce provides. So I like that. I like that it's breaking that down for you. And I like that the original resource it gave you was very straight on. So if you Google how long to prepare for the Salesforce Certified Administrator, it tells us 6 to 8 weeks. So let's just say 2 months. Around here, it's telling you on the 5 to 6 month mark to take the administrator exam, which I think makes sense because the assumption at the beginning was that you would only have partial time to study on a day-to-day basis. So if somebody that was studying full-time could take it in 2 months, makes sense that somebody that would only have half that time or a limited amount of time to study would be ready within more than 4 months. So I'm pretty happy with this response. I think it was very insightful that I was able to give such a niche, solution, that I went from web dev in terms of a tech, in terms of a tech role that might be a little bit oversaturated generic, to Salesforce administrator. So you still have to go through the process of learning projects, that require, coding technologies, because Salesforce has, they have their own programming languages, they have their own query languages. At the end of the day, you're also going to have a certificate, from that vendor that's going to prove that you do have that experience. And just looking through their, kind of like the curriculum they do have projects here that build up on as you prepare to take the test. So I think that's definitely going to help somebody that doesn't want to spend a lot of money going back to college, doesn't want to spend, $13,000-$15,000 going to a boot camp, and wants to have. I think this also takes care of, the aspect of wanting to manage your time and setting actionable and attainable milestones, even if you have a limited amount of time. So I think that's great. So meanwhile, ChatGPT just woke up. I think it took a nap, but I think I'm pretty good with the results we got from Claude 3. I don't expect that it would be better or as insightful from ChatGPT, but also I think the fact that, and maybe it's a fluke, maybe ChatGPT is oversaturated, but at the end of the day, like I was saying, I want to use technology that's easy for me to use. I want technology that's going to save me time. If this is something that, I'm trying to figure out, I don't think it would be very frustrating to just have to sit around and wait for ChatGPT to come back up, which it does happen from time to time. And also, I will say I'm one of those people that also feels that the responses of ChatGPT have to some extent become more generic over time, whether that's because of all the layers it has to go through to kind of like check and filter itself. Whatever the reason, at the end of the day, it's a paid service. And I think, amazing as the technology is, looking at what Claude 3 offers for the same price, I do think that this might be the better value. At least for now, the same thing might happen. I remember when ChatGPT came out, I loved it. I was a super fanboy for it, but it's so different right now. And the AI space is constantly and very quickly changing. So I'm going to go ahead and make this into a document. If any of you guys feel that this is valuable to you, especially like one from Claude 3, you're more than welcome to, take that, look into that, apply to it. If you're interested in going the tech route, if that's something you've been wanting to do, I invite you to shoot me a message, join my Discord. More than happy to help anyone out with that, because I understand that journey's tough. It's tough when you don't know anybody in the industry. It's tough when you've never coded before. It's tough when it seems like everybody else knows how to do the thing but you, right? But join the Discord, join the community, and we'll get you started on that path. And I'm gonna leave this other link in the description with a little more information as far as what tech sector you should join. Basically, there's data science, there's cybersecurity, there's front-end web development, and there's software engineering. Whichever one is the best fit for you. If you have no idea, if you don't know what I'm talking about, we can easily figure out with just a quick quiz, which I'll also leave on the link. But again, these are the results for now. I do think Claude 3 is honestly just doing pretty well, but just for the sake of fairness, let's ask ChatGPT for the more specific career goal that isn't as saturated. Let me see. Hopefully it woke up already. All right, so ChatGPT woke up from its nap, guys, and I do see here it's telling us it's going for the cybersecurity roles, right? Which I do think is a very relevant, very in-demand industry right now. However, I would not say that this is insight that's as valuable as what Claude 3 provided, mainly because I'm sure even if you're not in the tech industry, somebody has suggested that to you. I'm sure you've heard through the grapevine that cybersecurity is where it's at. That's where all the money is. So because of that, I feel like that's probably to some extent mainstream now and probably competitive as well. I also don't think the roadmap to it was too specific. I do feel like a lot of the advice here is somewhat generic. Basically, it kind of seems like it's telling you to, learn a lot of the basic concept, which I think for cybersecurity is going to be a big focus on networking related things as well as industry, standards, especially when handling information. So, like I said, I don't think the insight you get from that is quite as unique and quite as valuable as what we got from Claude regarding the Salesforce administrator route. And here's the other thing, right? If you look at for Salesforce administrator certification salaries, you get a good range between 74,000 and 120,000, right? So that's something I didn't know about the Salesforce thing until I started working, and that's until I was in the industry. That's after going back to school, after getting my degree, after having applied to all these jobs. It wasn't until then that I saw that there was this thing called Salesforce and had all these tools and all these suites and all, basically its own environment of technology that enterprise technologies like to use. And again, being well, because it's not quite as popular in terms of, what they teach in school or the skills that people have. Salesforce, they provide all these resources for you to learn about their technologies and even certifications. So you have that certification, you learn the skills that you would need anyway to become a web developer, and you would go in there not only going with the skills and the projects, but also certification. So I think, like I said, I only came across this insight until years later when, like I said, it was after all the schooling, all the applying, all the internships, and then once I was in it. But I think it's pretty amazing that Claude was able to give me such a unique insight based on my demand for, or based on my inquiry for wanting a more insightful response for something that was both in demand but not oversaturated. While I do think cybersecurity probably isn't oversaturated yet, it's definitely, I do think it's like one of the go-tos, right? People want to become either a web developer, going to IT, cybersecurity, or data science. Those are like the main things. So that's going to be it for me today, guys. It's definitely a clear winner for Claude. Definitely going to stick to it and try making some projects with it. So stick around and we'll catch up on those later.